Hello everyone, this is Richard Watson and Anglais the Easy Way. Today I'd like to talk about a book, one of my favorite books, a book by an author called Bill Bryson, and it's a science book, a book about science, and it's called A Short History of Nearly Everything. Basically, it's a non-fiction book that attempts to explain the history of the universe, from the Big Bang to the emergence of modern humans and to today, basically. And he takes the reader on a journey through the realms of physics and chemistry, biology, geology, paleontology, and he breaks down very complex scientific concepts into very understandable terms. He does this by tracing the development of science, basically, starting with early scientists, and he talks as much about the scientists as he does about the science. The book emphasizes the sheer scale of time and space. Sheer means enormous. Scale of time and space, the incredible improbability of life, and the interconnectedness of all things. Now, interconnectedness, a long word. Think of the word to connect. So connect, connected, interconnected, interconnectedness. Right? It's a noun. It's not a linear history, but rather a series of interconnected stories about how we came to understand the world. He picks out things like, what is a kilo and how was it established as a measurement? Or how did people learn how to calculate the distance of the Earth from the sun? How did people measure the size of a country before we had satellites in space? And it's remarkably interesting. I know it doesn't sound it when I say it to you like that. He picks out the craziest stories about scientists. For example, he talks about someone measuring the length of England from the very southern tip to the northern point. It was something like 1760 that they did this, I believe, maybe earlier. How do you measure the length of a country when you don't have satellites? Well, one guy decided to measure it with a chain, a metal chain. And he put the chain on the ground and he walked the whole way from the south of England to the north of England. That would be hard enough because you have to go in a straight line. But even worse, you have to take into account going uphill or downhill. Because if you're going uphill, your chain is on an angle and you're measuring upwards and not across. So he had to calculate the trigonometry and the angles of every single hill and every gradient as he went. And I think it took him years to do this. We don't even imagine the drama involved in these kind of scientific endeavors. He talks about the conflicts between nations, each nation wanting to be the first to make a scientific discovery, to get to the poles, or to calculate the circumference of the Earth and things like that. And each time he talks about the scientists and the expeditions who tried to do it. It's fascinating reading. I think my favorite one was a French expedition that set out to go to the Andes near the equator so they could calculate, I think it was the circumference of the Earth or the distance of the Earth from the sun, something like that. I think it was the circumference of the Earth. They set out years ahead of time to make sure that they were there at the right moment. And the time when they actually needed to make the measurement, it was cloudy. So they had to go back another time, years and years of expedition. By the time they got there, they got word that someone else had already done it. They spent 6 years for something that never actually happened. That's what scientists were great at back in those days. They had pirates, they had slavers, they had sickness, people ran away. Impossible adventures for a scientist. We can't even imagine that today. This book is full of that. Why is this book so interesting? Why is it exceptional? Well, first of all, he makes science accessible. He makes it very easy to understand. He's very good at drawing analogies. When you're expressing what actually happens in an atom or the size of a nucleus of an atom compared to the electrons, it's fascinating the way he describes it. This book has an enormous scope. Covers everything, basically. As he said, nearly everything. The book has fascinating stories about scientists and discoveries. It's funny. He's a very funny writer. And it kind of makes you feel and understand how amazing the universe is. The kind of people who would enjoy this book are people who are curious about science in general, of course, and want to learn about the world around them. This book is for people who like to learn and be amused at the same time. That's a kind of a gold standard in English scientific work. There's kind of a feeling that people who understand things really well can make it accessible and simple. We don't like people who hide behind incredibly complex language. This is a good book for people who actually like history, not just science, but history, and people who enjoy books that offer a broad, comprehensive overview of subjects rather than just the details. Do you want a couple of quotes? Okay. Nothing very difficult to understand. Our existence is a brief flicker in the face of eternity. Science is not about knowing everything, but about understanding how we come to know. The amazing thing about the universe is that it's so amazingly amazing, which is a typical Bill Bryson line. The universe is far bigger and more ancient than most of us can possibly comprehend. And the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. So, should you read this in English or in French? Well, I don't know. If you're only going to choose one, choose the one that's best for you. It's a fantastic book. I recommend it to anybody who's interested in science or in the history of science, or anybody who just wants to learn things in a different way, because this really does explain things in a very, very different way. Anyway, I won't try and convince you of anything else. I'll let you get on with it. That's enough for today. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.